This video will tell you all you need to know about canna lily plants. Canna lily, or canna, is native to the West Indies and Central America. It's used in the garden as a tropical perennial in zones 8 to 10 and an annual in zones 3 to 7. It grows big, bold, paddle-shaped leaves and has bright, attractive flowers that grow on spikes in a variety of colors. They are valued for their beautiful foliage as much as their flowers. The leaves of the canna come in a variety of colors ranging from green to chocolate colored to a variegated combination of these colors, depending on the cultivar. Cannas easily bloom all summer without much effort. The height is typically 5 to 10 feet at maturity, depending on how long your growing season is. The longer it has to grow, the taller it will get. However, plant breeders have now introduced dwarf varieties that get to 3 feet at maturity. These are best for people with limited space in a small garden. They are non-toxic to animals, and the roots are edible and have medicinal properties. The roots can be baked, like one would bake a potato. You might be wondering, what does this plant do for our garden though? Well, I'm glad you asked. This plant is great for lending a tropical look to the garden. A lot of people grow these just for the beautiful foliage. It grows so densely, it can provide a screen for privacy around a seating area, a pool, or if you just like to hide an eyesore, like a composting area. Personally, I've always planted cannas around my sunroom. As I watched the large leaves swaying in the wind, I always felt like I should be sipping a fruity drink with a tiny umbrella in it. It's hard to describe the majestic nature of these plants at full size. If you ever stand next to one, you'll understand what I mean. They are spectacular. Each leaf, as it unfurls, is 2 feet long and 10 inches wide. It's hard to believe that all that majesty comes from a small seed the size of a pea. In the next video in the series, I will show you how to germinate these seeds. I'll also be making separate videos on how to collect the seeds and store them for the next year. The canna flower grows from a stalk that emerges from the center of the leaves and flowers in flushes. These flushes containing clusters of flowers each last about a week. These do not need to be deadheaded, as the next flush of flowers will come from right under the previous flush, on the same stalk. To better illustrate what I mean, here's a cutout of one of the flower stalks from my garden. You can see here was the first flush of flowers. There's a small seed pod growing at the end there. This means only one of the flowers was pollinated, since each flower forms its own seed pod. Then the second flush grew here. Again, there's only one seed pod at the tip there. Then the third flush grew here. There's a lot of seed pods on this one, so the added weight has made the stalk lean over a bit. The fourth flush is the current flush. The flowers are open and inviting the pollinators over. The next flush would have come from here if the plant had decided to flush again, but at some point each stalk will stop flowering and the plant will grow a new stalk from the growth tip at the base on the root. You will know the stalk has stopped flowering when you don't see a new flush of flowers growing from underneath the current flush. If you aren't interested in saving the seeds and don't like the look of the seed pods, you can trim the stalk off for a neater look. Remember, only do this if you stop seeing the growth tip and the current flush has fizzled out. Otherwise, you'll be cutting off future flowers. As a happy bonus, this plant is a magnet for hummingbirds. Here's a video of one fluttering around my cannas while I stood there transfixed. It seemed to know I was there, but didn't care much. It would buzz right past my head on its way to the next tasty flower. Once the first frost comes, the leaves will turn brown as it begins the process of going to sleep. In zone 7 and below, the tube-like roots called rhizomes must be dug up to prevent frost damage if you're planning on saving them for the next year. I'll make a separate video on how and when to dig them up and how they can be stored for replanting the next season, or you can leave them in the ground, as I do, and let them die out, treating them as you would any other annual. You can start fresh again from seed in late winter for the following spring. In warmer climates of zone 8 and up, you lucky guys can just leave them in the ground. As for you, they are perennials. Stay tuned for more on this plant and others I find to be exceptional in the garden.